knows what's coming across that border? The prospects for mayhem are unlimited. If I was one of those people, or if I was somebody putting this thing together and driving it all, the imagination would be limitless. Okay, so what you have here is George Bush's Department of Homeland Security that he put together in response to the horrendous terrorist attack of 2011 or 2001. Okay, you have it 22 years later, that very Department of Homeland Security fostering this. I once stood about 8 to 10 feet away from Mohamed Atta. You may remember him. He's the guy who flew the first airplane into the South Tower. Right? I once stood about 8 to 10 feet away from that guy. It was January of 2001. It's a digression here, but I've never told that story before. It was January of 2001. I had just come back from a tour, rock and roll tour, and I was eager to take up my flying program. I was taking instruction in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and went over to the flight office to look at how the airplane was booked. I was flying a very special airplane, and I wanted to check on the time and book some sessions. And as I was standing there, when I walked in, he was there when I walked in. I walked around behind him. It was an L-shaped counter, glass, a merchandise counter with, books, headsets, flight gear in it, okay, L-shaped with a secretary sitting behind it. I walked behind him over to the short L to say hi to her because we knew each other well. On the long section of the L, I walked around him, and I stood there. I didn't say anything to him, and we were in each other's presence for maybe 15 minutes, I think. No, a little less. He left before I did. Here's my point. And you know what? I didn't know this until the Atlanta Journal was reporting it nearly a year later that he had flown at Lawrenceville, and then I remembered him. I remembered how he was dressed. I've always described it as casual but expensive, okay? Like a cardigan sweater on. Here's my point. You can stand that close to evil and never know it. But we can now see the threat happening for which the Department of Homeland Security was originally instituted. You can look right at it and see it. You know damned well, don't you? Somebody check me on this. I mean, I can drive in any discussion to epistemology quicker than anyone you know, okay? But you have to understand that somewhere in these throngs, these hordes, I'm just going to haul off and say it, coming across the southern border, somewhere in there is malign, evil intent. Now, you must know this. If you're informed by the larger context of, say, China and its rising belligerency, that alone should do the trick for you. All you have to do is look around the world and look at all the festering, boiling hatred of America, right? And the mobility, communications, and organization, command and control capabilities available today. I'm just scratching the surface here. There's two or three, four factors that you can add into the context here. You know damned well that a Mohamed Atta-like evil is coming across that border. And we don't have to be confused by our own trusting character anymore to understand this. Right? To me, Atta that day was just another guy in there looking to fly. I didn't know any better. real close friend of mine, when I told her this story a couple of years later, she wrote back an email, "Nice going, Billy. You could have saved New York." It was a joke, of course, but it's that year nobody had any idea to look out for something like that. But you know what? Don't you have any idea what to look out for and what's coming across that border down there?